Hello and welcome to This Naked Chat, a podcast where six friends from different walks of life come together for honest, unscripted conversations about living alcohol-free and everything that comes with it. We all met at a live event hosted by Annie Grace of This Naked Mind in March of 2024. What started as a mastermind group with the six of us and Annie turned into some really deep friendships, filled with connection, tough conversations, and a lot of laughter. And after a year of growing and learning together, we realized that these conversations might help more than just us. So here we are, no scripts, just real talk. We are incredibly grateful to Annie and This Naked Mind for helping us get this off the ground and for the impact that her work has had on each of our lives. I am Brian, and I am joined by Kori, Agnes, Judi, Jenie, and Sammie. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Brian.
Good morning.
How are we doing on this? What are we on? Episode 30. I don't know if this actually works out that way. It is episode 30, we'll say today.
Yeah.
So that's nice work.
Yeah.
Nice
a round
work.
number.
I know.
Even.
So
That's
today,
amazing.
what do we have? Kori, Agnes, Jenie. Missing two of us today, but we'll see how it goes. Here's the hat. I already picked it right here. So, ready? I did. I'm going to read it. I'm not going to say anything. And it is, damn, how has generational trauma informed your worldview?
Oh, my God.
I can't read it at the same time I pull it out. I have to react first. I think,
How does
Jenie,
that feel in your body, Brian?
I know. So, yeah, I think this was a recent addition. Maybe Jenie? I don't know if you put this one in.
I have no idea.
But I recently put it in the hat. How has generational trauma informed your worldview?
I mean,
Who wants to kick that one off?
how could it not? Right? I mean,
Well, I think for me, so the first time I heard that term was probably like 10, 12 years ago. And I didn't know anything about it. And it came up because one of our former pretend kids, who was also a coffee shop employee of ours, was Passamaquoddy and grew up steeped in a family of origin with just a shit ton of trauma. And she would talk about generational trauma. And I was like, what's that? Because I had no idea. And although, only 19 at the time, she was very, very versed in what that means. And so she taught me about what that means. So I think, everything happens on the other side of awareness, right? And when she was teaching me about all of this, I would start to see it in my outer circle. And I would start to notice, oh yeah, that's probably some generational trauma in that family. But it took me a long time years to then come to a place where I could recognize generational trauma in myself and in my family of origin. And then the full circle completion of that, I think for me, is how much that awareness that it's everywhere and it is the world has made me so much more compassionate, working on the patient's part, but more compassionate with just interactions that may not go well for me or the other person, and recognizing that there's always a reason behind why people are triggered and why people react in the way they do rather than respond. So I don't know, that's been kind of a full circle moment for me, or full circle evolution, but it's also ongoing because my onion must have enough layers to be like the size of Earth, because I just keep finding layers and layers and layers to peel back and learn from, and then make that journey around. So
What's the actual
So just-
definition?
That's what I was going to say, Agnes. So the definition is the passing of psychological and emotional wounds from one generation to the next, where descendants experience symptoms of trauma like anxiety, depression, relationship issues from events they didn't directly endure, such as war, abuse, oppression, or historical events, through learned behaviors, family dynamics, and potentially even epigenetic changes that alter gene expression. These unresolved hurts can create cycles of fear, maladaptive coping, like alcoholism, and beliefs that can affect future generations' mental health and behavior, requiring conscious effort to break.
Oh, that's a good definition. That's deep.
Yeah.
well, and what Danielle taught us is, for her as Passamaquoddy, that generational trauma obviously goes back thousands of years, and then from her, it was also where I learned about the epigenetic changes, but then those larger epigenetic changes come to inform small behaviors within family, friendship, whatever. But yeah, that's
I think Native Americans experience like alcohol abuse at a higher, statistical rate than, the rest of the United States. So that's one of those maladaptive behaviors as an outcome of intergenerational trauma.
You were going to chime in early there, Kori.
I think just about the definition. Well, just like how could it not, but also the definition. I mean, regardless of how you end up with it, whether it is from like direct behavior, attitudes, parenting styles, whatever, worldviews of that just get passed down, or through, specific genetics, it's like wearing a skin, right? You just take it for granted. You don't even know that you're wearing it, right? Like you don't walk around conscious every day of the fact that you like have skin on your body. You're just like, that's just your body, And so this intergenerational trauma is like that. I mean, it doesn't even occur to you that there's something different, that's just the way that it is. You just absorb. I mean, it's kind of like we talk about it more explicitly to some degree in like in This Naked Mind work, when we talk about like liminal thoughts and stuff, it's this stuff that's happening like under the surface that we've built our whole worldview on, that we don't even necessarily know that we've done that until, like Jenny was saying, you start becoming aware of the fact that it's there and that it's coming out, in ways in your life, in your relationships. It's a fascinating thing to me, that
I also think just in terms of, that phrase worldview, for me, it also informs my frustration with why over and over again history repeats itself on both a grand scale and a family scale, right? And and our current state of affairs in the United States, just while every day I'm frustrated and also fearful, historians do remind me that we have been here a gazillion times before. And the reason for that is we have this generational trauma that informs our behaviors and, perpetuates these cycles. And that actually, oddly, it sounds strange, but that helps me adapt and not be so fearful and angry and frustrated and just say, all right, well, as a species, we have had these issues in the past, and we have overcome, and we will again, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what we do. And maybe we'll have little micro episodes of getting smarter, because we seem to, because we're still here. So yeah, oddly, it's also comforting in terms of that big old worldview.
I think that realization for like the personal work too on noticing is moving from a place where you beat yourself up about like, why am I like this, and blaming someone else for why you are like that, and moving to a place of like acceptance of, okay, I am like, that's my normal reaction, and what do I do with it? Like I found
Mm-hmm.
as I learned more about some of my stuff, there was actually more of a almost grace with the people in my life who didn't know any better, or and even like forgiveness or softness that developed of like, oh, I see why you were like that, and it was passed down to you, and then it just got kind of passed down to me of like, okay, now that's where I am, and it's just kind of, okay, that's how that, and then not necessarily needing to change it or do anything with it, like you're saying, like just being aware of it, unless you want to. Like I think that's been the hardest piece of some of mine is now, okay, I'm gonna learn more about, like for me it might have been like dealing with grief or something like that, and how I handle it, which relates to about everything we talk about, right? Grace, compassion for yourself,
Yeah.
and not being so mad. I think I was angry for a while, maybe. It was like, yeah, because some of my default behaviors were, I don't know how to say it. I mean, like the drinking part of it, right? Was like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, and that's hard to tie back for me necessarily, but it's just like, oh, I just thought that's what I did. Like I learned somehow, okay, that's going to make things feel better for a minute or at the time, right? It's going to stop it. And I never learned how to go deeper, to actually deal with emotions of, and so that was passed to me, I think, because I learned that like, oh, you didn't deal with emotions either. So I never learned how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I see it as like generational trauma. Basically, everyone has it
Mm-hmm.
completely. So there's nobody that's excluded from that, because trauma is so different to everybody. So when we hear that word trauma, sometimes we think of these really drastic bad things happening. But something so simple as being rejected at a playground for a child could be traumatizing, that has imprinted those emotions and those feelings in the body, which now will react whenever a similar situation happens. And you're not connecting the two together because that's work. Like we just don't do that as human beings. So, when we start getting curious and start asking those questions, more of a, if something is not sitting right, instead of saying, well, that's just how it is, that's just how it is, well, then that is that generational part of it, because you're just accepting things for the way that they've been and how they are, opposed to questioning, well, does that actually fit me? Does it suit me? Does it make me feel good? Because if it doesn't, now you're starting to get into other dynamics for yourself that can create further traumatization, because you could re-traumatize yourself all the time, right? So it's just when you have that awareness, and I think that what ends up becoming challenging is when you actually realize, you know what, that doesn't suit me, or I'm changing this, or I don't, or now I understand. It's being that different person, because then there's all of these fears of being cut off from the family, of all of this. So now you're totally tapping into a very uncomfortable world, which then can feel isolating and alone. But once you know, again, and that's practice. That's just doing a little bit, doing a little bit. You end up building that courage to do a little bit more. And what it really does is it gives that invitation to everybody else to do the same thing, because we are all afraid, period. Everybody is. We're so afraid. So, you know, one person having that courage to do something different just allows somebody else to have that courage to try something different too. And we can
100%.
heal, right? That's how we heal.
Mhm.
So it just goes,
You
but you don't question it. Like, I'll give you an easy example for me that immediately comes up. You know, women, they cook and clean and that's it. And they support their husband. I was brought up that way. That's how it was. So guess what? That's how my mom, she attached that. That's just, she normalized it. Then it comes to me. Okay, that becomes, I'm trying to break free of it. But again, it's like, I'm raising my brothers. I'm taking care of them. What happens? I end up having 3 children and I have a girl. Guess what my daughter did? She took care of her brothers. And to me, that's normal because that's what I did. That's what my mom did. We all did that. So I saw nothing wrong with that. I thought, that's your role. You got to do that. We all did it. Now I look at it as, no, but you know what? Maybe I didn't want that role and it's okay. And that isn't your role to begin with. So again, and it's just questioning the things that we have normalized, which is all generational stuff. And we all have it. And there's nothing wrong with it. Because, you know, some people, they need to continue on to feel safe in themselves because change is very uncomfortable for them too.
you hit on something so important there though. Like we are often, and I think because of this phenomena of generational trauma, we are often attracted to the things that, or we feel most safe or most comfortable in the things that actually continue to do us harm, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you can see that in your individual behavior, just like with alcohol, for example. I mean, yes, the substance is addictive, but even, you know, with non-addictive, quote unquote, substances or behaviors, that you will continue to feel safe and drawn to those situations, those people, those whatevers, that because of this skin that you're wearing that continues to tell you, on the one hand, that this is right? This is what feels comfortable. This is what culturally, family, whatever, I grew up with, and it felt like home. And yet I can also, on the other hand, recognize that it's doing me harm. And that takes something to break out of that. Like you were saying, like being that, having that courage to be different. And then, but what a beautiful thing it is, because then you're like, oh, giving that permission to somebody else when you do that, when you do something different and say, I don't have to accept that harm, even though it feels comfortable.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The alcohol part of it was huge for me too, because it's, again, alcohol was always around. Again, it's like you work hard, you play hard. It was that kind of mentality. So there was no calling out sick. I wasn't raised in that. So I took that on too. So again, I worked really hard, but I really enjoyed getting drunk and numbing my life out. So I did both. So I didn't think there was an issue with that because that's what my family did. I know a lot of people and I surround, you know, like you see it and you just think this is normal. But it was harming me. So you know what? If it worked for them, that's fine. That's them. There's no judgment there. But it wasn't working for me. So I'm trying to now fit into this generational trend that doesn't feel good for me. And it's like, no, I'm not doing this. I can't do this anymore. But breaking it again, it's like, it is a challenging thing. And there is a lot of courage that comes with that because it's like, now I'm doing something different. So that may trigger things in them questioning their own stuff, or, me being afraid of being cut off. So it is like, if we just all just became more curious about who we are, and really, instead of doing what we think should be happening, we should be doing, but really understanding what works for us and why it works from us, coming from your heart, coming from that place of love. I think that we would just make very different choices for ourselves, and everyone else will do it. They will do it because we're all the same. We're all the same. All of us.
Mm-hmm. Dope.
This episode is sponsored by The Path by This Naked Mind. It's a year-long program that combines expert guidance, daily support, and a connected community to help you take back control of your drinking so that you can wake up without regret, trust yourself again, and live a life that doesn't revolve around alcohol. Unlike the programs that focus on your behavior alone, The Path helps you eliminate the desire to drink using science-backed content, world-class coaching, and a compassionate community that really, truly gets it. So you can feel confident and in control of your relationship with alcohol without shame, without rules, and without missing out on the things that matter most. And in 2025, support is more accessible than ever before, with live online coaching calls every hour on the hour from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Saturday. No matter where you are in the world or what your day looks like, support is always there, right in your back pocket. Learn more and start your path to freedom at nakedmindpath.com.
Do you think, to that point there of changing, like how we, well, so the question was how has generational trauma informed your worldview? Jenie hit on this a little bit too. But like that part is when you start to see the world like, oh, everyone has something. How does that affect now? Like, how has that changed how you kind of act in the world? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think it's like what you were saying. Like you're able to be more compassionate with people. Yeah. But it's not like I'm right and you're wrong thing. It's like, oh, I get it. Or I get how you ended up here and how it came to be that you're being shitty to me right now. Right. Like, it's not acceptable that you're being that. I don't have to tolerate that you're being shitty to me, but like, I understand it. I don't think you're just a horrible person because you're standing in front of me yelling at me.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, like, even when you're saying like we're all the same, this is an area where I think, to your point, I can't assume everyone is the same as me on this area, right? It's like what works for me doesn't work for you. And as much as I want to like preach, like this is the only way, it's just not, because everyone has such a different, kind of what's going to work for them. That's kind of been opened up for me too, is this like, oh, okay, this is, this was my stuff or my thing, like specifically alcohol. Right. But when I go and evangelize, like this is the answer, it's just not for everyone,
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's like, it's very, very different. There's no two individuals that are identical. So it's not same in that regards, but it's same in the sense that everyone has it. Everyone has some form, whatever that form is. And again, it's also, for me, it just feels like I don't feel this need to have to change or fix anybody, because now I see it as, oh, like they're hurting, they're feeling something. So you know what can I do? And that's where you now can have that compassion and grace for them, because what they really need is, maybe they just need a hug right now. Maybe that's all that they really need, opposed to being told that what they're thinking or what they're doing is wrong, because in their eyes, it's not wrong. So it's stemming from something else. It just makes you a calmer person, but that's all internal work. Because if you are going to be calm inside, if you're going to have that calmness and you're going to have that clarity, that neutral mind, you will be able to be in that space with somebody else and let them just be. And you'll be able to do what you need for yourself to keep yourself safe, not expecting somebody else to behave a certain way to make you feel good. So if that means removing yourself from the situation or saying, I'm not participating in this conversation, it's making me feel uncomfortable, whatever it is, you just learn how to be your authentic self, really.
And that's the difference between reacting and responding, right? And what you're describing is responding. And I think we've all lived the reaction in the reaction column also. And responding is much safer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Than reacting.
And the
100%.
same, I think the same that ties in there is like the relating to like your own experience. Like that's not something that anyone really necessarily needs to hear either, right? Of like, oh, I understand you, because you don't. Like their situation is completely different, but we're putting ourselves in those shoes and trying to imagine.
Yeah.
And it's just a tough. That's that was always my default thing to do. Is like, oh, this is how I would feel in that situation, so that's probably how you feel. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's like like that comes from a place of you're trying to express compassion to people.
For sure.
When you do that, you're trying to say you're not alone. I totally understand how you feel in that, but it's so bizarre that it's kind of ends up being this like devaluing thing.
I know,
that
it's so
is
weird.
not welcome. I know. I know.
It's what I've done. That was a definite pattern for me, and it still is. I mean, it's still hard to fight, right?
It's kind of in the same line, like the same but different, thing. Like we're all the same, and yet we're still different. Like yes, we're all the same. We all have this like baggage and this pain and whatever, and we want to be able to like express that to each other and express that compassion to each other, but then also somewhere there's a line of like, but still your situation is unique, and I want to be able to honor and respect that while still showing you compassion.
Is this something that started out for you guys? I was just thinking about like the alcohol piece for me, which was my kind of first thing to be like, hey, I think this isn't serving me anymore. Was almost, it wasn't pointed out by someone else. I'm thinking like, it wasn't like in a therapy type scenario of like, hey, have you noticed this pattern? It was a pattern I recognized in myself, but it took a long time then to do anything about it. Right? It was kind of that voice saying, hey, I think something's off here. And then hearing that over and over for so many years before finally doing something. So I was kind of wondering for you all, did you start to recognize your own patterns, or did someone else like maybe bring you to it? Does that make sense?
I think it was a combination of both.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel good, but I didn't understand why it didn't feel good. Because again, it was like, this is just how it is. This is how life is. This is what you do. Which again, that's all generational. It's what I've been exposed to. So that's why, but it didn't feel good. And I didn't like that. But not until through therapy. Well, really, it was through This Naked Mind, doing the programs, when I understood that alcohol has a job and it's doing its job and it's not me, and I was able to detach it from me. Then that's when I was able to start looking at it in different ways. And then therapy was I just feel like it was speeding up the process for me, because, my therapist, she was able to see those patterns a lot quicker than I was capable of doing it, because I had so many thoughts and feelings and emotions and everything going that I couldn't. So she was able to bring it to my attention a lot quicker, which then I could be like, okay, and I could sit with it. So
that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah.
Is someone from the outside can recognize it in you
Mm-hmm.
seems like a lot faster, because
Yeah.
to you it's normal, right? It's
Yeah.
like, this is who I am. And they're like, do you notice this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, what is that different?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, and also I think what happens for a lot of us is, even if we recognize that something isn't serving us, alcohol or whatever, your own cognitive dissonance, right? That feeling of cognitive dissonance, your brain will jump in and try to figure out a way to make you right anyway, to justify what you're doing, even though one part of you says, no, this isn't right. So then it's helpful to have somebody else like interrupt that pattern and say, on one hand, you're telling me that you don't like this, do you see how it is that you're like, making shit up to make this right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's almost identifying that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Points to these things, doesn't it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Huh. You're saying this, but you're doing this. Huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else want to put a bow on this? No? All
No,
right.
I think it was good.
Bow for the holiday wrapping.
Oh, geez. All right. Lovely chatting with you all again. We'll
You're
see
here.
you next week.
You're here.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If something we said resonated, made you laugh, or made you think, we'd love it if you share it with someone who might need it too. And if you're curious about going alcohol-free or just ready to feel more connected to yourself, check out This Naked Mind. Annie's work brought us all together, and we're so grateful for the impact it's had. On that note, a big thank you to Annie Grace and This Naked Mind for making this podcast possible. We'll see you next time on This Naked Chat.